All right. Welcome back to the Board Drill Podcast. Like usual, I am your host, Kyle Bradburn. And with me at my side here is my co host, Matt Dixon. Tonight, we have a special guest. We have Coach Sean McIntyre from Creekside High School. Yes, yeah. We're still working on getting the applause button set up, but someday we'll do that when we're a legit podcast.
So real actually quick, like stadium noise. I want stadium noise with it.
Yeah,
bring it up.
We'll go record that tomorrow. I am off work, so we're good. All right, so Coach McIntyre's in his 7th season at Creekside. He's coached all around kind of the Jacksonville area. He's been at St. Augustine. He was actually down in Rockledge, Bayside. And at one point you were at Mandarin too, correct, Coach?
Yes, sir. 2013 to 2015.
There you go. Coach is a 41-32 record at Creekside. They were 0-22 prior to Coach taking over. He's done a fantastic job. I have coached against him. I have tried to coach with him multiple times, but didn't make the cut. So far this year, they made the playoffs. They've had a winning season for the 4th straight year. They play the 13th most difficult schedule in the state. I can't talk enough about this coach and what he gets out of his players on a daily basis. His sheet is long here. It's fantastic. In 2017-2021 FACA District Coach of the Year, he was the Jags Coach of the Week 1 of 2022. And he was recognized by the Jags for being the Coach of the Week on the Monday Night Football game. So Coach McIntyre, kind of a storied staple here in North Florida. Everybody knows who he is. He is super modest, so he will not talk about himself as much as I will, but he's a fantastic guy. He's someone I call my friend. He's an old neighbor. I did move down the road though, but I do miss living down the street from him, being able to talk ball every Sunday. But Coach, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you here.
Appreciate it, man. And I'm very blessed in my life. I'm very blessed with a supportive wife who lets me spend countless hours building a football program and impacting kids and doing what I love to do. And she, is the head coach of this house, that's for sure. And then I'm very blessed with a great administration and great coaches. It took us a while to get to where we are coaching staff wise. And I think part of what we do best is develop coaches. And I'm given, if you go around and poll coaches and you had to say, hey, you can have an abundance of talent or super supportive administration, almost every good coach is going to take a super supportive administration. And I've been extremely blessed with what I kind of walked into. When I took the job in 2017, the principal who hired me was retiring in June. And I got the job in January. And I didn't know if it was going to be a one and done type thing because I'm not going to, run the rat race if people aren't pulling in the same direction as me. But I've been so blessed to have Steve McCormick as my principal. And we actually got a new AD my first year too, and Luke Maribel. And the three of us have been together the last 7 years. And it's just been an unbelievable partnership, the support that I have. I currently have 12 coaches on campus. And
crazy, Coach. Every coach listening right now, their jaw just hit the floor, at least in the state of Florida.
Right. It wasn't always like that. Year one, we had 3. So it's just kind of grown. And I did a really good job of hiring great men who impact kids. And, people get a bad rap in the football world. If you're not going to be able to coach for me, if you can't get it done in the classroom, like that's just, it's not going to work. So I hit some home runs early on in my tenure and some guys who made some impacts in the classroom. So I got, like, whenever I brought somebody to the table the next few years, it was just yes. And those guys have done a tremendous job. They love kids. They come to work every day. They're very consistent men, and I'm thankful to have them. And I'm thankful that they've allowed me to continue to hire guys, even some guys they may record question on. If me and our staff put a rubber stamp on them, they were going to get hired, which has been tremendous. And they've done a great job. So haven't had too many issues with them. And so I think that's a huge part of our success for sure, the men that are around me.
Yeah. And Coach, you talked about it, and it's a perfect segue. Our topic tonight is teaching techniques for players, but also teaching techniques for coaches and assistant coaches, because obviously we all want to talk about teaching techniques for players, but we, at the same time, as a head coach or even a coordinator, you need to be cognizant about making the coaches around you better through different teaching modalities and methods out there. And last night we talked with Coach Avery a little bit about that. But I'm curious to hear more about that with you. But let's start with the players. So kind of discuss the significance of teaching fundamental skills to players. And really, when you look at it, that long-term development, obviously at Creekside, it's a place where, you're going to have to raise football players from freshman to your senior year. And, I'm from the outside looking in, Coach. You can correct me if you want to, but it looks like you guys do a great job of getting guys ready to be huge pieces their junior and senior year and really building that direction. So talk about teaching them from freshman level to that senior level.
I think it takes an immense amount of work to do that, and that's work that we are willing to do. We averaged the last 5 years, we've averaged over 30. We've averaged about 33 seniors a year. Some years have been about 35, 36, some years 31, 32, but it's been about 33, 34 seniors per year. And those kids, when you have that number, there's a lot of kids that aren't necessarily playing every snap that are seniors. And we try to really pour into the kids. Like there's no secondhand citizens on our team. Every kid, I try to treat them like they're a starter. And I think our coaches do a great job of that as well. And we're very open and honest with our kids. We coach them hard. We love them. We celebrate them. I'm critical by nature, but I try to do a better job of celebrating their successes, even if it's a little success in the weight room or whatever. A kid makes a play at practice. And so when you do that, the kids buy in and invest in that. When you have the numbers that we have, we currently have we carry roughly between 160 and 170 kids each year. So it's at a situation where that development starts at the bottom with those kids. We have 2 JV teams. It's not a freshman team and a JV team. It's 2 JV teams. And one JV team is a developmental team. And we try to get all of those kids reps. That team is usually a little bit bigger. And those kids, we have kids on our team that start on our varsity football team this past year that were on the JVB team that started their career there. And they've just grown and developed. You never know what's going to happen with a young man from the age of 14 to 18. They go through immense physical and mental development. And, so when you see some of these kids, they can't barely tie their shoe as ninth graders, and you look at them as a senior and they're functioning at a high level on the football, you feel really good about that. And I think that's because of the consistency that we approach every day with. And then we have that scaffolding. We have a place where you can grow. You don't have to be ready to play right now. And then if you're ready for JV Red or a better JV team, you're going to get pushed and it's going to be uncomfortable. This funny story, we have a 6'8" freshman basketball player. He's really good at basketball now. I mean, he's like probably the best, maybe potentially the best basketball player that's come through Creekside ever. Wow. And he was on our better JV team. And we, one day after the season had ended, we went in the gym and played some basketball in first period weights. And this story just is hilarious to me. He's going super hard. And our varsity defensive end, this kid played tight end and did some stuff on offense. Our varsity defensive end goes, "Hey man, why are you going so hard on me today?" And he goes, "This is my get back for scout team." And it was just hilarious. Because those kids on that good JV team, they are getting pummeled every day by the varsity. So hearing that from him was hilarious. And, but I think that helps. He definitely got better at football because he went against our varsity defensive end each day this year. So it's been a situation where having variable levels are critical. And then with fundamentals, you said about that, everything is fundamental. If you can't block and you can't tackle, it doesn't matter if you're wing T or empty 80 plays a game. It doesn't matter if you're 3-4, 4-4, 4-2. It doesn't matter. If you can't tackle and get off blocks, you are not going to be successful on either side of the ball. So we spend an immense amount of time, and we've learned how to kind of incorporate tackling and agility and change of direction and reaction into some of our off-season programming to where those kids aren't so far removed from it when we start spring football and roll through the summer. There's a lot of ways that you can incorporate all of those movements and all of those reactions without the contact. And I think that's been huge for us. We've missed less tackles in the last few years. We're better at blocking people because of some of the things that we do from a change of direction standpoint in the off season and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I remember going back, Matt, I don't even know what year it was. We're at Oviedo, And we sat around, me and Matt in particular, and I think one or two other coaches, we sat in the coach's office and we're like, look, let's revamp our entire offseason. This is back when still like it's far enough backwards, like, everyone just ran sprints until we're tired because that's how you get tough. And I hate saying the word tough now because of that. But Matt and I talked about, well, like, let's figure out a way to do change of direction stuff and explosive stuff and stuff that fits to the movements they have in the game. And we weren't by any means revolutionary. Other people were doing this, but we finally had that moment where, everything that you're just saying there, Coach, we sat there and talked about for hours and hours and hours and finally did it. And shocker, we got a heck of a lot better over the offseason. So,
and if I believe, from what I remember, it was when we added a stimulus to the drill, right? So there was a reason to react. There was a reason to move. And we really found success transitioning to, hey, here's a shuttle run. Now here's something that has to happen to evoke that shuttle run or that change of direction. So I think we did a lot as far as that goes in developing our program, our off-season program, and we got better significantly in attacking and blocking. So definitely understand what you're talking about, Coach McIntyre.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're revolutionary in any capacity in regards to that. But just making, your 5-10-5 shuttles instead of doing a 5 like we do, all kinds of stuff where they have to chase each other and they have to react to a different direction, and it's competitive. I think that competition piece is also critical for us. Everything we do when we're out there in those environments is competitive, and teaching your kids how to strain is huge. Like, we weren't ready to compete early on in my time at Creekside because our kids didn't know how to work. If you're coaching effort and you're teaching kids to strain, you can't coach football at a high level. The effort and the strain has to be there consistently so that you can coach the details of football. And, especially when you're dealing with our demographic, we're not the most athletic team you've ever seen. We have great kids. They're good football players. They will run through a wall for us. They want to do right. Like, I'm not by any means poor mouthing our kids, but we're not as athletic as the people we have to beat. So we have to make the most out of our kids' ability to respond and react to stimulus in the most efficient and effective way that their bodies will allow.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes sense. We always talked about stop doing things that don't apply to a game. Like, at one point in my career, I looked at it, I was like, why are we just doing these drills and this stuff? And it was like, we came to the realization, well, that's how we got coached. And I'm like, well, that's 30, 40 years old. Are we not thinking of anything new? And again, I'm not revolutionary to that point, but it was like, let's make sure that everything makes sense for game movements. Or if we have a game movement we're not good at, we better find a drill to fit that game movement. So I love that, Coach. That makes so much sense. So getting back to it, we talk about developing kids from freshman to senior year. Now, I know you're a head coach, but you are a defensive guy, which is what I love about you because we're just better people. But when you talk about developing a kid from freshman to senior year, can you talk about your defense and like the skills that you want to progress from freshman to senior year? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit. But...
Yeah. Well, I've also been fortunate enough that where I've been an offensive coordinator at the high school level too. And I think that gives me a great perspective on a lot of things, especially defense. But defensively, I think three things are critical. Pursuit first, your angles. Like, even if your tackling form isn't great, if your leverage is good, you're going to have a chance. Second is getting off blocks, teaching kids that there are multiple ways to get off blocks and how to do that. And that is not, that is something that we teach in a multifaceted way. The first day you're in helmets, it's a kid against a kid in a hand shield, just locking out, hands above eyes, shedding ripping through and disengaging a block. And then you talk about when you get pads on, shoulder reducing and running through. When do you strike a block and when do you run through a block?
Yeah.
And then obviously tackling. So where proper contact levels, the different type of tackles that occur, and then repping those things. So in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, the first component, the tackling, the leverage, the pursuit of the tackle, is critical for us to make sure that kids understand where they need to be in order for the ball to get down. So we put them in a bunch of different situations, and it's good for our offensive kids. We'll just throw a ball out to a kid and in a T-shirt and a pair of shorts, and we're going to try to get a two-hand tag on the near hip. Now, what we don't want to see is kids overextending and overreaching. We want to see them with their elbows tight, guns kind of loaded, that tackling form, and then getting a two-hand tag as opposed to reaching and lunging and trying to like pull a flag like a little kid you would see on a Saturday or rec league. So teaching that proper fundamentals and then doing it consistently throughout the year. But I think those three things, block destruction, then, once you get into pads, your position coaches are going to have to address that daily, if weekly at minimum, and the different types of blocks that those kids are going to see, and that's just being a good football coach in a good football program. And then obviously tackling, kids are going to have to practice the tackles. They're going to have to practice on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no doubt. And all that makes perfect sense, right? Make sure you understand the pieces of it. When we talk about defensively, that makes maybe the most sense. You got to get off a block. You got to make a tackle, all that good stuff.
So like one thing we did, and this just came to me as I kind of paused there. One thing we did this week that we had never really done is we moved away from the generic tackle circuit. We every year for about the last 5 years until this year, we started Monday's practice with a tackle circuit, and the kids had to just do. We had like it was a 3 station rotation, and we had about 6 drills. So every week it was a little bit different. But this year, what we did is on Sunday at our staff meetings, each defensive coach said what their tackle of the week was going to be. Like if it was a big double team, like if we knew we were going to get double teamed inside, the defensive linemen were going to get double teamed, and they were going to come off and make a tackle once that double team came off of them. Linebackers, if it was a gap scheme team, seeing the pull of the guard, and if it was a wide zone team, tracking the near hip and working on a angle tackle. DBs, like 1 week, a team that threw a bunch of bubble. So one team threw a bunch of hitch. So now we're tackling the outside hip of the hitch. So we did a tackle of the week. There was weeks where we couldn't come up with concise tackles of the week, and we would go back to our generic circuit. We always had that in our pocket, but I kind of left it up to the coaches on that Sunday meeting about what we wanted to do and how they wanted to tackle on Monday to start practice. So that I thought that was a really good thing that we did this year. Kind of like what is going to stress your position group from a tackling standpoint, and let's put them in that situation to start practice on Monday.
Coach, no one hates the generic tackling circuit more than me. I despise it. And I know we have to do it at times, but I'm with you. Let's think of a new drill every week or something that's got a little bit of difference in it. And let's do that, because kids, if I think it's boring, the kids think it's boring. And so we got into, I did kind of the same thing. I go out to the typical thing. I reach out to Bama and Georgia and all these other guys. So what do you guys do besides tackling? We do a turnover circuit, and we do it with the offensive guys. And I'm like, this is fantastic. Tell me about it. So we started incorporating turnover circuit in there as well, punching the ball out and all this stuff. And our kids started having a great time because it wasn't the same old tackling circuit. So I love the idea of thinking something game week to game week, because I think it keeps it fresh for the players. And we talked about this last night. Matt talked about it. Aaron talked about it. Do things that they think are fun. I know we have to do specific things, but if the kids like something, do it. It's such a great thing. So
also, I love to see how realistic it is to the game of what you're doing. You're pulling straight from the film, creating drills straight from the film. Absolutely love it. Sorry, Kyle.
No, you're good. I like when Matt talks. He needs to talk more. So, Coach, getting back to the teaching, what are the different ways when you introduce a concept or a new thing to your players? How do you teach it? Do you start on the board? Do you do film? Do you go out on the field, walk through it, and then do this? What's that process at Creekside High School?
So that process, I'm not a huge. I want football to be special, and so we don't do a ton of stuff in the winter with our kids outside of class and the speed and agility and the strength conditioning that I was talking about. So we literally, it's usually we start we go for 45 minutes on Tuesday morning, every Tuesday after the Super Bowl until spring football. And it's usually like 4 or 5 weeks. That's it. We don't go spring break. If there's anything else, we don't go. It's not a huge issue for us. And all that is just going through formations, making sure kids can line up. Defensively, we're a quarters team, so go into quarters and all of our checks in the quarters toolbox. Then making sure we can line up and play our base trips check on offense, making sure literally we can line up in the formations we're going to line up in, and going through our first 3-day or 4-day install. And that's really all we do. So then when we get to spring football, they haven't had an immense amount of stuff with us. Like we are never really good in spring, ever. And that's okay with me. I want room for growth. I want the kids to feel like they need to get better. And I don't want to inundate them with high school football. I want them to know the season is special. This isn't something we just roll through all year, and it's just kind of not it's just something we always do. I want it to be special. Like, this is football season. And Absolutely. So on a normal day in the spring, and that it kind of marries up to what we do in the fall, we're going to have meetings after school. We get out of school really late. We get out of school at 4:00. We're going to have a 25-minute meeting, and that's going to force my coaches to, they know they only have 20 to 25 minutes. They're going to have to be organized on what they're going to accomplish in that meeting. They're not going to sit there and click through huddle film, clip 1, clip 2. They better pull the clips that they need to see so that they can go from there. But in that meeting, if it's an install day, they're going to go through that install. The kids are going to see the diagram, going to talk about the install on the board. We're going to maybe have a clip of it from when we ran it previously. We're then going to go to the practice field. And this is actually something I went through with our staff, and this is not new. I think Alabama has that teaching progression. Like, you're going to go through it on the board. You're going to show a clip. You're going to go to practice. You're going to work the skills of it. You're then going to install it in group, and then you're going to run it, and then you're going to coach off the film off of it. And I put together, we did a staff retreat this past year, and I'll talk about that more later. But that's the teaching progression that we utilize. We're going to have a meeting. You're going to install it in Indy. You're going to install it in group. You're going to run it in team. You're going to correct it off film. You're going to do it again. And you're going to do it again. And you're going to do it again. And that's kind of how you build a good base foundation fundamentally for the kids to be able to execute the plays that they need to execute.
It's like a great lesson plan, Coach, right? Because we're teachers as well. All right. For everyone listening, some of the best teachers are coaches.
Yeah. If I teach American Government Honors. My kids are awesome. The students are awesome. But I can tell you that my lesson plans in my classroom are not built on 4-minute or 5-minute periods. And if they were, I promise you, I'd probably be getting a lot more out. I mean, I do have the highest scores in American Government Honors in St. Johns County, so I'm proud of that.
That's it. Coaches are number one.
I do feel like I can connect and teach some kids. So, but I know that if I was more detailed about my lesson plans in class, and I've been teaching the same lessons for 7 years, so they don't need to be like that. But that's just the way to be a good teacher, to have a plan, to put it on paper, and then to create it day in and day out like that, and be consistent with it is by far the best way.
And just some plain good pedagogy we're going on right there.
Ooh, maybe good some pedagogy. Differentiation there. All right.
But it's really important that your coaches and players both understand what's going to happen on a daily basis. And I've definitely seen the benefits from doing those same routines over and over and over. The players get a better grasp. The coaches know what's coming, know how to coach it. Excellent stuff right there, Coach.
Yeah, I try not to surprise anybody. We are very routine. Our kids know what to expect at 9:05 on a Monday morning. We're going to have a team meeting. They know that on Wednesday afternoon, after practice, or Thursday afternoon after practice, they're going to get helmet stickers. If anything in the week is different, I try to communicate that starting on Monday morning at 9:05 at our team meeting, because I don't want our kids to ever be surprised, to ever be flustered or feel like something is not right. So I try to make sure that I can over-communicate with my coaches, with my players, with everybody involved in our football program. Anything that is not unique or anything that is unique on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And because kids, I don't want to say nowadays, because I'm sure we're the same way. We struggle with change. And at times when it's sudden change, and I'm not talking about during the game, I just talk about in your routine. Sometimes you get a little flustered. So, and adults get that way too. So, Coach, one thing I've always really admired in you has been your positivity. Anybody that knows me is kind of laughing when I talk about positivity because I'm a little intense sometimes. But what strategies do you employ to create that positive and effective learning environment for both players and coaches?
I'm by nature critical. So it is something that I literally have to just kind of push and force. And I, there is, it's easy because there is genuine excitement. Like I am genuinely excited to go to work every day. I'm genuinely excited to be a part of what we're doing at Creekside. I love it on a daily basis. So I think when you enjoy something, and you have a passion for it, it's easy to elicit that response and elicit that feeling and kind of push it forward. And I try to tell our kids every day, man, like there are days where I got stuff going on in my life. I got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and a beautiful wife. And, there's things that go on in people's lives, and there's days I don't want to go to practice. But I hope, and I tell my kids, I hope that you never know that. I hope that I don't change that. And that consistency and that urgency and that intensity and that enthusiasm doesn't change regardless of how I'm feeling. And I think that's just part of being a leader, part of being a man. Like you have to, even on the days you don't feel like strapping it up and getting after it, you got to do it. And you got to do it at all capacities and all ways of life. I hope that, the same enthusiasm and energy I bring on this podcast, I'm bringing, at my house. Last night we were playing a intense game of Sorry, and I hope that I'm having the same energy and enthusiasm, and my kids would feel the same way that my players do about me, because that's going to be, at the end of the day, the most important thing that I do. So, I think that it's just the genuine excitement, enthusiasm that I have. I just try to parlay that into spreading that positivity. I mean, like I said, I'm critical by nature. So I try to celebrate. I have done significant work on trying to make sure that I celebrate every small success of a kid in the weight room, a kid on the practice field, a kid in the game, because I am going to light them up when it is not right. So they have to hear me tell them that they need to hear me know that when they do it right, they're going to hear that too. And hopefully the same way that I light them up when it's not right, I'm patting them on the back and saying great job when it is.
Yeah, Coach, it's one thing I've noticed being around you a whole bunch is, whether you want to call yourself critical by nature, is that you do a very good job being a positive guy and an upbeat guy a lot of time. And that's something I've always admired in you. And there's a handful of coaches like that. I'm around them, and that's why I like to keep you around, because you keep me in check. Even when we used to have our Saturday or Sunday morning conversations. And I'm all down.
I miss those, miss the dog and the baby and
yeah,
man.
I'd
Walk outside and be like, "What's up, Kyle?"
And I'm always like, last night it was really tough. And you're like, well, Coach, think about this. And you always gave me some great pointers, so I always appreciated that. So let's kind of change the course here into teaching coaches. And so earlier you just kind of teased us with a little bit of a staff retreat, but how do you go about making and teaching your coaches to be better? And I don't mean better people. I mean, as a better coach, because we always need to be pushed to be a better coach, every year.
Yeah. It's kind of like the art of coaching for me, with a kid. One day I think you need this, and another day you need that. And we have done very different things as a staff in a year in, year out basis. It's never been the same. And it's kind of always tended to lean towards what I thought we needed as a staff. So like a couple years we went to like glacier clinics together. A couple years one year we went to Coastal Carolina. I took like 13 guys to Coastal. And we had the best season in school history. In 2021, we went 8-3. We graduated 19 starters. We were very different, and we followed that up with the best season in school history in 2022. We went 9-3, and we completely changed our entire offense. We were a huge 11-12 personnel gap scheme, team. And then in 2022, we were 11-10 with wide zone and inside zone only, and completely changed kind of what we were. And that was because we went and did the work at Coastal Carolina, and kind of stole a lot of the stuff of what they were doing, and then implemented into because that's what fit our kids. We didn't feel like with the kids we brought back from 21 to 22 that we were going to be able to run the ball downhill into people like we were. So we started running a little bit more wide zone, and I was critical. I was very critical of it, and God bless my offensive line coach, Robert Sparrow. He's been with me the whole time at Creekside. Our offensive coordinator at the time, Ricky Barnes, they were like, Coach, this is what we need. And they implemented that change, and it's been huge for us. It's been wildly successful for us. So I think being willing to go out and learn, me as the head coach, I got to support my guys. So if I have a guy who texts me, hey, Coach, can you buy this subscription? Buying it. Done. Hey, Coach, can we go to this clinic? Buying the pass. Done. I try to get my guys whatever they ask for, because I want them to be willing to do the work as well. So that we did that to Coastal. The next year we did that was last year. We did a staff retreat. So we got a huge house in Kissimmee. It slept like 26 people. There was like 22 guys that went with us. And all of the varsity coaches, and like I said, I'm tremendously supported by our administration. So we got a Thursday and a Friday off of school.
Wow.
And we went down to do this. And I made every varsity coach give a presentation during that time. I started off with the presentation, and I just felt like it was at a time when we were, there wasn't a great fit for us to go somewhere and learn from somebody like Coastal. Those guys had all gone to Liberty, and getting to Lynchburg, Virginia from Jacksonville, Florida is a tall task. It's difficult to do. I've researched it every way I can. I just felt like doing a staff retreat. I felt like there were some specific things that our coaches needed to get better at independently. So I gave a lot of our coaches the specific content and the specific topic that they were going to speak on, because I wanted them to do the work on that, and I wanted to be better at that component of it. And I started off the whole retreat with a culture talk, because I don't think I do have 12 guys on campus, but those guys all have to teach first period. So they're not in our varsity weight class. They all have to teach seventh period. So not in our varsity weight class. So they're not in the weight room when we're talking about culture a lot. So I went through our entire culture, the things that I talk to the kids about, and how we go about our business from a culture standpoint, the buzzwords and the things that I want them to be focusing on. Then we talked about execution, because in my belief, the two most critical components of your football program are going to be your culture, like how your kids work, our definition of culture is the consistent actions of a group. And so, like, everybody talks about culture, like, what is that? And I talk about with our kids, culture means, what are we doing consistently? Not saying we're going to do, what are we doing? And then execution. If you can't execute, you can't win. If your culture isn't great and your effort isn't great because of it, you can't execute, you're not going to be as successful as you should be. So I defined execution. I went through a ton of examples of, like, things that coaches need to be aware of, because there are execution on one play isn't always the same. If it's a 6-yard route and it's 3rd and 8, well, that better be an 8-yard route. If it's raining, we better be talking about taking care of the ball and what's going to happen. Like, if we're up by 28 in the 4th quarter, we better be telling our guys to stay in bounds and go down, first down, go down. Things like that change your execution. And we talked about that. So that was last year. So I think it's just critical. I think, 1, you support your guys. 2, you try to make sure that you give them, like, this year we won't do a staff retreat. We'll go to a college and visit with them, or we'll go to a Glacier or a Nike. I kind of take a poll with my guys and see what they want to do. And then you support them, and you make sure that you get the information out to them early, because people have lives. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I try to get it to them early and be very, very organized with that. Like, I'm not going to text you, hey, next weekend we're going to Glacier. Like, I will have it to them hopefully before Christmas, exactly what clinic and when we're going to do it, so that they can make plans in their lives to make that. And just like the kids, they're committed to what we're doing. So they're going to do everything in their ability to be there. And if you don't give them a week or two notice, like it's not advantageous for them going.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you. One thing that you said in there that I'm a huge fan of is defining the terms you use. That drove me nuts. I used to tell coaches all the time, do not use a term you don't define to our kids. I don't care how you define it, but don't use a term you don't define, because then the kids aren't really sure exactly. Like, I go back to, that's why I hate the word tough unless you define it. Stop saying,
how do you deal with adversity, baby?
Yeah.
Toughness.
So if your answer is tough is how you react in the fourth quarter when you're tired, then that's awesome. That's tough to you. But when you just say, hey, I want you to be tougher, I want you to be this, I'm like, the kids have no idea what you're talking about. There's no measurement there. There's no goal. Stop saying it. So
we had so today we were doing yoga on Wednesdays for the last couple of years. I feel like after having seen it for a while, it kind of has worn out its welcome. The kids don't enjoy it like they once did. I think we're going to do it every other week or every third week, maybe. But it also wasn't giving us the desired results and effects that we wanted from it. We still have kids with lower back issues at times. We still have kids with tight hips, and that was supposed to be our focus. And once a week, I don't think is enough. Probably that our focus is on it. So we're going to try to incorporate more of that movement based stuff on a daily basis. But long story short, today we were doing a relay tic-tac-toe race where the kids had to run 40 yards and we were just talking about competing. And I just said to them, I said, guys, it doesn't matter if you won or lost today. I wanted to see how you handled competition, how you handled adversity, how you handled a kid on your team who let you down. Things like that. And we talked about that, and toughness came up. Our toughness is one of our foundation. Always. So the first night I got the job, we had a parent, player, coach, meet the coach night, and my wife was there, and we walk out of there, and I go, what'd you think, babe? How'd you feel about that? She goes, you said the word tough 280 times. I go, good. That's what I want. If we're going to be something, we're going to be tough. So we still talk about that. That's one of our foundations. Our definition of it is, how do you deal with adversity? And it comes in a lot of different ways. And I stole that directly from Kirby Smart. So just FYI.
You can see Matt writing it down in the background. I love this.
How do you deal with adversity? And I talked about it today. I go, guys, adversity is losing at tic-tac-toe. And there was, if your team lost, you had a couple push-ups. I go, I wanted to see who was going to strain and struggle through those push-ups. Even though you lost at tic-tac-toe, and that's not a big deal, is that the amount of adversity it takes to break you, that you can't do the push-ups because you lost at tic-tac-toe? That's what I want to know. And that was a conversation that we had today. So just trying to get our kids to compete on a high level was the point of today. And then just watch them respond and lead. And we talked about how, the Navy SEAL teams, they talk about the teams that are constantly losing, and they put one leader on that team, and then they start winning. And I go, somebody's got to step up and lead these teams you teams that are losing, that's because these other teams are better organized, and they're having a better plan, and somebody's taking control. I was like, you guys are just letting it happen. And when you let it happen, things are going to happen that you don't want.
And
so
that off-season,
about that.
That off-season competition really brings it out, and you get to see who the leaders are, the kids who are passionate, and just more great stuff, Coach.
Yeah. Boat cruise, Coach. That's what you were looking for there, by the way.
Yes.
You're talking to the one guy that's a huge reader of Navy SEAL material. So I love
you got any good reads for me?
Yeah, I got a couple books. I'll bring them over to you. There's I don't know the titles of them right now, but I have 4 or 5 Navy SEAL books sitting right over in our bookshelf that direction.
Yeah, it's not football season, so
Coach,
it's reading season now.
Yeah, so I love all the Navy SEAL stuff. That's kind of the same thing as you, Coach. At one point, I was trying to learn how to be a better leader. I said, I've got to be a better leader to be a better football coach, and that led me, shocker, right to Navy SEAL books, because they're some of the best leaders on earth. So I love exactly where you're going with everything. Not that I wouldn't under any other circumstances, but it's amazing how you've just said so many great trigger words for me that just make me excited. So is that not how we use trigger words anymore? But whatever. So one of the couple more things, Coach, and we always have a surprise question at the end, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize for it now. But before we get to that, how do you measure that skill progression in coaches and players? I know sometimes it's an abstract thing, but how do you measure that development in the kids and you say, all right, he's now at the next level or he's here?
It depends on the kid. It depends on the position. It depends on a lot of, components. I try to never, we have had some kids who have started for us and who have made plays for us that when I looked at them as a 9th and a 10th grader, I'm just going, he's got no shot. But but God bless some of those kids, man. They just continue to work and continue to just outwork people and out deliver. And then in the most critical moments, because of the work they've done, they don't let go of that rope. Yeah. They just continue to hold on and continue to fight through every ounce of adversity, and you're just so proud of those kids. So I try to never put a kid in a box. I try to let them show me what they can do. And we are constantly trying to help kids and tinker with them. On defense, we're going to start. If we think you can run it all, you're playing DB. And then we'll move you to linebacker and then to D-line. And we've had kids make that whole progression all the way to the front, right? And that's not revolutionary coaching. All high school coaches know that. If you think a kid can start, you move them far away from the ball as you can, then move them closer. Yep. And so we try to make sure that we are putting our kids in a position to be successful, like where they can succeed based on their skill levels. I can't tell you how many kids we flip from offense to defense and vice versa. Sometimes it's a weekly basis with some young kids. And we just try to put them in a situation where they have the most chance to be successful. And I think it also comes to that kid understanding what you want from them and that coach and them being on the same page. I think skill development, I think you obviously have to have some skill, but I think the ability for a kid to, like, there's two kids I can't coach: a kid who can only do what I tell him to do and a kid who can't do what I tell him to do. Oh. So we try not to overcoach kids to where they have to think so much that they are frozen in space.
Hey, Coach, sorry, yeah. You cut out there. I'm sorry. Can you go back to the two kids? I apologize. You cut out for a second, so we missed it.
Yeah, no problem. So there are two kids I can't coach: kids who can't do what I tell them to do, and kids who can only do what I tell them to do.
That's so such a great point.
Yeah, we don't try to overcoach kids to where they are a robot. Like, if you tell your Sam linebacker that every time he's got a slot and he's going to fit outside that slot, well, he might run past. He might be able to go cut that slot off and go make a tackle for -3. But if he has to fit outside that slot every single time and be a robot,
yeah,
you're not giving that kid the best chance to succeed. So there is a fine line of, like, you have to be able to, if you're playing DB, you have to be able to backpedal, open, break, stay on top of routes, right? But I don't want to give you so much to think about that you can't play either. So we try to do a lot from an athletic development standpoint. We try to do a lot from a fundamental standpoint, and then a lot from our teaching standpoint, so that the kids understand how to play, and then we let them go out and play, and they show us that skill is there.
Yeah, I love that, Coach. You kind of talked about it right there. Now I'm curious. We're going to go a little off topic here. How do you deal with a kid or kind of talk to them when you are sliding them around in positions and they don't quite love that? Right? We get that a lot. Like, Coach, I'm a this. No, well, if you want to play, you're a that. So
yeah, well, I don't. We deal with that a lot. We don't force it on a kid.
Yeah,
I tell them.
It seems like your retention, Coach, has been incredible. If you got 30 guys at each, or if you're dealing with 160, 170 players in your program, 30 seniors every year, how do you, dealing with what you just said, how are you keeping those kids in your program? What motivating factors do you have there?
Yeah, so to kind of finish what Kyle said, we don't ever force a kid to play a position. They tell us what they want to play, and they're going to get every chance to play that. But our coaches and our player and our coaches care about our kids, so they're completely honest with them. And like I said, I try to celebrate their successes. So when I come to a kid and I say, hey, listen, here's what we see.
why don't you try this? Or would you want to try this? Let me know if you want to try this, depending on how the conversation is going. Then if they want to try it, I always tell them, listen, if in a week you're miserable, you go back. No problem. Our starting corner this year was a starting running back for us in July.
Wow.
And a kid who probably, if you would have said in June, hey man, you're going to be the starting corner, he said, I'll never play defense. I would have bet he would have said, I'll never play defense. But we have a cornerbacks coach that he kind of took to, and our cornerbacks coach talked to him, and he's a really good football player. And so he gave it a shot. And we told him, he said, hey man, listen, if you want to go back, and this is a kid, we end up having some injuries. He took some carries for us weeks 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
Because he had that repetition from his, he's a junior. He had some reps from 9th grade year, 10th grade year, and then all of what he did through the spring. So, and then to go to your question, Matt, it's just genuine care. I care about these kids. I care about them. I'm never going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to tell them what they need to hear. But I think when you genuinely care for kids, and there's a way to deliver a tough message with care in your heart, for the kids. It's never just, real gruff with me. I try to put my arm around them and talk to them through it. And when we have the number that we have, there are kids who quit, kids that you don't want to see quit, that quit. I have kind of learned in 7 years, once that cue comes out of their mouth, they're gone. Anything you got to say to them, you're wasting your breath. Yeah. They're not coming back in the door. Once that cue comes out of their mouth, that they are gone. And so I just kind of, I still get mad about kids that quit. Like I really get just angry. And I'm like, we have invested so much time in you, and you have invested time in here. How you want? And I just kind of say, hey man, appreciate you. Thank you. And I don't say much to him in that moment, because I know I'm an emotional guy. My blood is boiling, and I try to just shake their hand, say thank you. Then maybe a month down the road, I'll see him in the hallway, and I'll have a conversation. Sometimes man, I'm really frustrated you quit. I love you. I think you're a great kid. If I can ever do something for you. Or it's just, hey man, how's everything going? Depending on how that situation is, and I speak to them from my heart. So I think that's part of it too. Just being open and honest with them. I'm never not who I am. I always am just genuine, and I care about them, and I don't tell them what they want to hear, but I just try to deliver with my care in my heart, from where I'm coming from in every capacity. And I, right now, I think you got to give each kid independent time too. And that's hard. That's hard to do when you have as many kids as we have. I know every kid's name from the first day they come. I'm going to know every kid's name the first day they step on our campus. I'm asking every kid their name over and over and over again, so I can make sure by the second week of summer, I say, hey, Johnny, what's up, man? How you doing today? And go from there. And right now, I had our kids fill out an exit interview form, our returning kids, and I'm going through, we have close to 40 seniors this year if everybody sticks around. We have a huge junior class that's rising up. And I've probably talked to 32, 33 of those 40 kids, talked to probably about 16 or 17 sophomores, one-on-one. The 9th graders, I don't have an exit interview with them. They're still kind of swimming in it, and I don't think that conversation, they're ready for that. But our rising juniors and our rising seniors, I meet with every one of those kids one-on-one, and we kind of set some goals, and we kind of just make sure that we're on the same page about where they are. And I think that goes a long way with the kids, that I'm willing to spend one-on-one time with them and have that conversation. So I think a lot of it is that. And then the biggest thing that I think we do is we give our kids time together. That's what the kids come back for. They don't come back for me necessarily, but they come back for each other, and they care about each other. That's whatever. One of the questions on the exit interview is, what do you enjoy about Creekside football? And almost all of them, right? The guys, my brothers, my teammates, that's what they care about. So making sure that they have that time together too, and that connectivity happens is huge.
All right, Coach. So we always wrap up every guest with the same question. We never prep them for it, so I apologize in advance.
No, come on.
And I actually have an answer for you, but I'm going to listen to yours first, and then I'm going to go to bat for you as well. What is the best thing your program does that no one else does, or you're better than everyone, and it's okay to brag here, or what's the most unique thing that you do that no one else does in your program?
I think some of the best things that we do is team camp, like reading our exit interviews. Those 3 days together, like the FHSA was looking at getting rid of that. I was going to take my kids to somewhere for 3 nights or 2 nights and 3 days and make them tired and put them together. Almost every one of my seniors, their exit interview is a little bit different than the returning kids. Almost every one of my seniors write, like I write, what was the best experience in your 4 years? And almost 100% of them write team camp. Whenever a kid comes back and visits, stories from team camp come up. Some of the things I think that we do, we weigh our kids in every Friday. We call it Fat Boy Fridays. There is a chart. There is a chart on our weight room wall. If you and in the season, so we color code it. If you gained weight, it's red. If you lost weight, it's black. And if you lost weight, it's blue. So I can look at the chart and kind of see on a weekly basis, just get a snapshot of what a kid or what our group is doing. And I tell them too, so not only, like I say, I care about how much you weigh and I'm going to feed you. So we spend probably $12,000 to $15,000 a year on PB&Js and chocolate milks. I think it's as important
how much?
as anything that we do. Yeah, $12,000 to $15,000 a year. When you feed 150 kids a PB&J and a chocolate milk on a daily basis, it gets the cost ratchet up pretty quickly. But I believe it's one of the most important things that we do. They know after they walk out of that weight room, they're going to get fed. So I think that's important. Tracking bench press. We bought this new weight room goal board. So like we have at the top on the wall, like forever, if you bench 300, if you clean 300, if you squat 450, your name's up there forever. But we bought this new one where like if you bench 200, you get a little magnet on there and it could go to 225, 250, 275, 300. And it gives the kids something to strain for. And we make a big deal about it when they get on the board, like the whole team's around and we clap it up for them and they put their name up there. And then when they move up, the same thing. So that's been really cool. That we do. I have great coaches. I think I've done a great job of acquiring a tremendous staff. That's been huge. So, I'm not the smartest guy you've ever met. I'm not the best coach you've ever met, but I have some tremendously good coaches around me who impact our kids as much as I do. And I'm blessed for that. So I think those would be some of the things that we do. I don't know if I have one answer for you.
Coach, I got one for you. That's your program. Coach, how many student assistants do you have?
Oh yeah, we've got like upwards of 20 something.
Coach, I have never heard that at any high school program in the entire country. I'm not saying, I'm sure if anyone actually listens to this podcast, they're going to email me or DM me and be like, oh, we got 30. But Coach, you want to talk about retention of players, which is phenomenal. Retention of student assistants is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Just real briefly here, how are you able to do that?
It kind of has taken a legs of its own, man. I'll be honest. I had some awesome kids. Like it's just like our coaching staff. When I first got there, we had like 11 guys total. Now I have 28 coaches. We had like 2 or 3 managers, and it just kind of had grown. I have like, honestly, Kyle, those kids, I don't even know what they do. Like they get practice ready and they do stuff with our trainer, and I couldn't do their job because I don't know what they do. Like, and it's been a thing the last 5 years. I have like this 1 or 2 senior girls who kind of organize and coordinate the whole group. And like, it just rolls into the next year and they kind of go, here's your leader. And so I deal with them. I haven't had much drama with them, which you can have. So what I do from my end is I make sure that I'm a part of the scheduling. I don't make them come every day. I don't think that's fair to those kids that aren't on the team. I don't make them come. They're either a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday. That's the 2 days. Like they're going to pick those 2 days, and then they're going to pick the games they want to go to. Some of them go to all the games. Some of them don't. It does, but I think there's strength in numbers and them knowing that they're not going to have to do all the work themselves. And then I always try to make sure they have a friend that they're with. Because if
Good
they're
point.
out there by themselves, it's not very much fun, like to be there and to carry a
Mhm.
6-pack of water around and help us at practice. It's extremely valuable for me and our players. I treat them like gold. I know all of their names. I buy them gear. Like I let them pick out their own gear out of the catalog. Like, what do you want? Like, hey, you want a jacket? You want a sweatshirt? What do you want? They write down an order for me. I get them one thing that they want. I treat them like gold. I make our coaches treat them like gold. I make our players treat them like gold. I think because they're respected, if we eat, they eat. If we get a shirt, they get a shirt. They're a part of our team. They're on our weekly email list. So I think that just me, and I think that they're valuable. So I treat them as if they're valuable. And I think that goes a long way with kids. And luckily we've had some awesome kids who've been a part of our program that have never worn a helmet. And they're as valuable as anybody else.
Coach, that is, when I talk about unique, that is one of the most unique things ever. And I know a couple years back, I came out to one of your spring practices, snuck out there. I don't even think you noticed me. I was out there hanging out, and I was like, there are an unreal amount of kids out here just helping. It was, I just looked around, and that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, there are so many student helpers out here. Like, what's going on? Is this like a day they do it just one time or what? And it was incredible. So that blew me away, Coach. It's one of the, I'm not saying it's the coolest thing about your program, but it's one of the coolest things and a huge accomplishment that I know you do, but you definitely should take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, no, I do. I take a lot of pride in it. And so the one thing I do to start spring is I put a TV announcement on. I text and message all of our previous managers. I ask them if they have any friends. I go in the cafeteria and just start talking to kids and asking them. We probably have like 16 girls that are like student assistant managers, like with the deal with the water and stuff like that. And then we probably have like 6 kids that fly drones and film at games. So it's been, I've been blessed to have those kids, and we're always looking for new ones. I'm blessed with that.
They always talk about recruiting the hallways. Coaches, you need to be thinking about recruiting the hallways for that right there, right? Filmers, people to help out, all that good stuff. That's phenomenal.
Absolutely incredible.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, our mission statement, we always talk about at the end of every episode. Guys, me and Matt are purely here to help out high school coaches, to give them great references, and to talk about what you want to talk about. So, if you're listening and you want to reach out to us, you can email us at theboarddrillpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm told it's now X. That is at boarddrillpod. So we didn't have enough letters to get Board Drill Podcast in. And then I don't know, one of these days I'm going to make Matt create a TikTok because I just want to make him do whiteboard stuff on TikTok all day long. But again, if you're interested in any topics, you have any questions for our coaches that you'd like me to follow up with Coach McIntyre, or you want to come on the podcast yourself, please reach out. Let us know. We're excited to have it. Again, we are here to help high school football coaches. We're former coaches. That's all we really want. And it's fun for us. This is the best part of my week, aside from seeing my family. I work a regular job now, so getting to sit around with great coaches and people that I really, really enjoy being around talking football is the best part. It is the best part of my week because I can't coach anymore. I hope I'm back one day. I know Matt feels the same way. So Coach McIntyre, from me and Matt, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and we hope to maybe have you on in future episodes. Maybe we can talk a little X's and O's.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do. I'm on X, so Twitter,
Yeah, absolutely. What's your handle? I'll put it in the description, but what's your handle?
Yeah, at Coach_McIntyre. I'm an open book. I've not invented one thing that we do. So I will give you anything, anytime, anywhere to anybody, and wish everybody the best. And our biggest job is to impact kids and do that in a way that nobody else can, because I think we have a platform that nobody else does. So any way I can help, please let me know.
Absolutely. Matt, any other parting words?
Just in review, I think that's 12 on-campus coaches, 28 coaches in total, and 23 student trainers. It's incredible. Incredible, Coach.
Yeah. Coach, you are going to be the envy of all 12 people that listen to this podcast. So, maybe it'll be just your staff listening to it, so they're probably laughing right now. But again, Coach, thanks for taking the time tonight. We appreciate everything you've done, and have a great night.
Thanks. You guys too.
Thank you, Coach.